strange they flash their lights for like a second.
Yeah. Left and right, please.
Car to the right.
Why would...
Oh, it's John.
Oh, right here, right here. Get out, Dylan. Get out.
Look.
We're behind you. We can't impede you behind you. We can't impede you. Also, we have your faces on film. We got your faces.
The Department of Homeland Security says that we are participating in obstructing and stalking ICE officers. During Operation Metro Surge, the name given to immigration and customs enforcement operations occurring within the twin cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul, ICE have arrested over 4,000 people since it began December of last year. ICE enforcement operations have surged across the country, fueled through a funding increase over 1,300% in the last 10 years, the vast majority of which occurred over the last year after the passage of Trump's professed Big Beautiful Bill. Alongside this, new hiring incentives for ICE officers, including a much-advertised $50,000 signing bonus, have created a sizable recruitment spike, alongside an increase in community concern about a lack of training around safety or the rights of those that they police. This increase in community interest has meant more journalistic attention that officers may not have experienced before and subsequently don't know how to handle. The ICE agents we had begun filming started zigzagging through the community soon after they became aware of our cameras, even eventually going in circles in a roundabout as we watched on, baffled.
People are over here.
Oh, they're trying to arrest people.
They're trying to. Fuck this. ICE are there too. ICE over there on that side.
Honestly, Merc, this is the shittiest gamer tag in the world. it's important to do, but you really feel that.
On February 4th, as we were filming in Minneapolis, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, more commonly known as ICE, reposted online a video of journalist Fischer, who was also present at ICE's confrontation with us on the road. The video showed him filming ICE activity in Minneapolis from a vehicle as ICE drove around the city. The government asserted that he was engaging in stalking, saying that the video showed activism, not journalism, before stating, as other officers did while filming, do not impede or obstruct ongoing operations. How a journalist filming ICE vehicles from behind is impeding or obstructing operations, considering the agents never had to stop due to being blocked, is not made clear by the admin. While Don Lemon's case filming from inside City's church under very different circumstances has gotten much more attention, the Free Press's right to film police activity is deserving of as much, if not more, attention. Reporting on police operations in local neighborhoods has always been a protected activity for journalists, as protected by the First Amendment. From filming how police conduct themselves when performing arrests, or allowing the public to track police activity on apps like Waze when monitoring traffic, or in this case, confronting people in their own driveways.
What's going on?
Quit. You have a chance. Quit. Please quit, bro. Quit, dude. Quit.
These types of public confrontations with residents of the Twin Cities, both non-citizen and citizen, have occurred with increasing frequency since the start of the new admin. One possible cause was leadership, like the arrival of Greg Bovino, the newly crowned Commander-at-Large of Customs and Border Patrol.
Arrest as many people that touch you as you want to. Those are the general orders all the way to the top. Everybody fucking gets it if they touch you. You hear what I'm saying? Less legals? We're gonna look at shipping tractor trailer loads of that shit in here. So you catch what it's all about us now, it ain't about them. Professional, legal, ethical, and moral, you know what we're talking about, legal, ethical, moral. You're on camera. But other than that, it's what we do.
What city is it, T?
Fucking Irish Fire fucking city.
I'm in the gas, get back. Gas is coming. Gas is coming. Second warning. Second warning. Third warning. Gas. Get back.
Commander-at-Large is a newly made role during Trump's second term. It bypasses CBP's command structure and instead reports directly to the head of the Department of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem. It also means more management that's seen as loyal to the current administration. He was placed in charge of Operation Metro Surge, had CBP doing large sweeps of the community, asking for identification from those in the vicinity of ICE and Customs and Border Patrol activity. Bovino's public relations campaign for the operation did not successfully produce a productive working environment with locals.
Not belong in this property at all. We do not support ICE. Get off of our property. Bye. 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 Get out of my way. I'm trying to leave. Get out of the way. Hey, watch out behind you. Get the fuck out of my way. Get out of my city.
We begin, though, with breaking news out of Minneapolis, where an ICE agent shot and killed a woman now identified as 37-year-old Renee Good. According to Minnesota U.S. Senator Tina Smith, she was a U.S. citizen. City leaders say she was not a target for an ICE-related arrest. Now, there is video. It was taken by a bystander. It captures the moment an officer fired at Good inside her car.
No! No! Shame! You are looking at live pictures right now of the streets in Minneapolis. You can see all of those lights. This is a vigil near the site where the shooting took place. Crowds have been growing all night. They are chanting, "Say her name."
A second person has been shot and killed at the hands of ICE agents in Minneapolis.
Danita, overnight that we learned that the victim has been identified as 37-year-old Alex Pretti.
The videos shot from various angles show federal agents shoving someone before Pretti steps in. Pretti is then pepper sprayed in the face by an officer while holding his phone and is then wrestled to the ground. DHS said he brandished a weapon, but the videos don't appear to show that. This one does show an agent appearing to remove a gun from Pretti's back waistband seconds before the shots are fired.
Minnesota Governor Tim Walz is vowing to conduct a state-lead investigation into this incident despite federal oversight, and this as another wave of outrage is spreading across the country as protesters and state officials renew their calls to end the ongoing immigration crackdown.
You cannot bring a firearm loaded with multiple magazines to any sort of protest that you want. It's that simple. You don't have that right to break the law and incite violence. We will, of course, always protect your First Amendment speech. And if you peacefully protest, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. But you have seen a trend here, not just in Minnesota, but across the country, in these protests turning into violent scenarios and people attacking law enforcement. That's when you go over the line, and that's when law enforcement steps in.
I mean, I was there in Minneapolis the day after Renee Good got shot. A lot of mainstream media and independent journalists and field correspondents went out. And I was there for 20 days reporting protests and police and kind of everything that was popping off.
Kevin Posobiec is a field correspondent for Human Events, a conservative magazine that once used to dominate conservative DC intelligentsia during the 60s, while they still printed a physical magazine. Wanted to hear what Pat Buchanan, right-wing father of the culture war, was gonna say next after his '92 speech, warning of the radical feminism and homosexual rights the Clintons would lead God's country to? You went to Human Events. The day of their print pinnacle is gone, and after stopping its print, it was restructured and sold to the former editor-in-chief of Breitbart News as it headed into the digital space. The transition would eventually be dominated by the name Posobiec, so much so that the website has a section just titled Posobiec, where readers can get Jack Posobiec, Kevin's brother's, daily takes on the culture war. Kevin was sent by Human Events to Minneapolis to report for them in the community in the aftermath of Miss Good's shooting. What was your motivation to go to Minneapolis?
Well, I gotta say the motivation was, I mean, So in 2020, the context would be, obviously George Floyd was killed about 2 miles from there for when Renee Good got shot. And so we were speculating that they as in, leftists, radicals, and perhaps Democrats at large were trying to turn this thing into the next George Floyd and cause like nationwide unrest. And especially in particular towards the midterms in 2026. But also, definitely from George Floyd dying. I mean, that was more racial, but now it's definitely more of an anti-authoritarian narrative we're seeing.
You did ride-alongs with ICE in the Twin Cities, am I correct?
Yes, in Minneapolis.
What was that experience like?
That was great. So I was field correspondent for Human Events during that time, and I was allowed to go on based off of my email to them where I said, I want to interview you guys to show the more human side of things. And it seems that I was exactly on target in my questions to, the spokesperson when I was on the ride along. And I just tried to show that these guys are just Americans and they are just like your neighbors. We live in the same country that we love, and this is their task, and they're going after the illegal immigrants that a lot of us have in our cities. So I was definitely there on a humanizing event, and
During your time with the ride-along, was there ever a moment where the spokesperson stepped away and you got to talk to the officers one-on-one, or was the spokesperson always present?
There was no. I mean, he was no. Yeah, I tried to stick by him because this was like one of the leaders. This was the EAD, Executive Associate Director of ICE, Marcos Charles. So this wasn't just like a random ICE guy. Like this was like one of their leaders. You could see him, and he is, I believe, one of the official spokesmen that does go on mainstream media and give speeches. So I mean, when I was around the other guys, we were just shot the breeze, just talked about football and talked about food, just like anybody else. So nothing, they just seemed like any other kind of police officer, military
Typical
guy.
guys?
Yeah, and some ladies too.
One strategy used by local activists to hinder and monitor ICE activity is setting up pop-up checkpoints. They stop cars they suspect may be ICE officers and check their license plates to see if they match a list of suspected ICE agents shared in group chats. While corrections are made to the lists when errors are found, due to the manner in which they gather the list, misidentification, in at least some cases, was inevitable.
Can I drive? I got a red light.
So now we need permission to drive from these people?
Can you back up slightly and go right?
Yeah, I could. If you leave, I'll go right. Thank you.
While driving around the neighborhood, we would find SUVs containing ICE agents hidden behind tinted windows as they staked out different points in the northern Minneapolis suburbs, seemingly camped out in front of local homes. Once noticed, whistles and yelling from activists warn of their presence. This catches the attention of locals who walk out onto their front yard to see what the commotion is, before giving their reactions to those visiting their neighborhood directly to the tinted windows separating them from the agents. As more people gathered, or residents drove by to gawk, the agents did nothing. They would chat amongst themselves, scroll on their phones, and occasionally turn their phone camera on the protesters for whatever purpose, I do not know. Rumor has it to add to a list they are keeping of protesters, which DHS fervently denies. These agents don't do much of anything else, parked in the suburbs as if that was their outpost. I got the sneaking suspicion, as people in the neighborhood peeked through windows and reports of these agents lit up the signal chats monitoring ICE activity, that these officers were not the main operation. My suspicions told me that these operatives were meant to keep the neighborhood distracted, while the main axis of operation occurred elsewhere. We kept moving. How would you describe your experience in the city?
It wasn't unlike the Jazz. I mean, directly after she got shot, they tried to build an autonomous zone with forts and food trucks and wood and even like some igloo kind of thing or some kind of like hut. I mean, it was negative degrees and the wind chill was very bad. So it was very tense and intimidating, and also very dangerous. I mean, there was, honestly, I like to say that Mother Nature was more dangerous in ice on the sidewalks than the actual ice, in my opinion.
We are at a brass solidarity protest at the site where Alex Pretti, a local nurse, was shot dead. Since the killing of Renee Good and Alex Pretti by federal immigration officers, along with increased immigration raids over large swaths of the community, including hotspots like North Minneapolis, protests like these, where locals show opposition to ICE's continued presence in their neighborhoods, have become more and more frequent, and continued to snowball in size. Events like this one feel more like a vigil than an expression of anger, a way for community members to come together, play music, sing, lay flowers and candles where Alex died. The mood at the event was upbeat, with not many people from out of state present, with plenty of dancing and chatting between locals. Gloves and hand warmers are passed out, and a communal fire is set up nearby for anyone overcome with the biting Minnesota cold. Despite the cold, which often dips down to negative freezing temperatures, demonstrations have often braved the ice, sometimes long into the night, to show opposition to ICE. People danced until the event ended, going over the scheduled time, as those affected by the killings, deportations, and national spotlight found comfort in each other. I overheard two neighbors talking, with the older of the two saying, "We needed this." What were the main focuses of your reporting? Were there any particular stories that interested you, that you went and created content out of, that you thought was indicative of what was going on?
Sure. I mean, the content, I mean, left or right, you or me, like, everybody's there for, like, the blood and the guts and the carnage. I mean, that's just kind of human nature. Like, people are interested in that. So we tried to get that, but, I'm also not a live streamer, so I tried to focus on other topics such as, Mayor Jacob Fry and, Governor Waltz and then the Insurrection Act possibly being enacted. So I was trying to get involved more on, like, the legislative side and whether or not people were acting in certain ways or holding back. We saw the Minneapolis police kind of standing down at times. So we're interested in that.
You mentioned the Insurrection Act. What was your focus on that? On the Insurrection Act possibly being called upon by the government and used to deploy troops in the city? Did you see that as a real possibility? Something that should happen?
Whether or not it should happen, I'm kind of on the fence about it because that's like martial law, and I don't know, that could potentially go either way. But we really thought it would happen after the third shooting when the Venezuelan guy got shot in the leg. Forgive me if he's not Venezuelan, but the guy got shot in the leg. He attacked an ICE agent with a shovel. And then after that was the night when the Latin King stole one of the rifles out of the agent's vehicle. So we thought, and then of course all the agent's vehicles got trashed and tires slashed, and they tried to light them on fire, and then the documents got stolen out as well. So we thought it was going to happen that night, but it didn't.
Is there anything that you would say made you think that it was going to be called specifically? Was there any act that you saw this was a red line of some sort?
I don't think so. I mean, of course, if anyone else had died, or if, like we saw in George Floyd, if buildings were being burned and there was looting, but we didn't really see a lot of rioting and looting. It was just very focused on the police and law enforcement. And, obviously against ICE and Border Patrol that we saw just little skirmishes back and forth, but we didn't see any like mass chaos, which would, give more grounds to it, I think. Well, we're seeing a much larger anti-white narrative coming along, and that's not just American. I mean, This is global now, Dylan. We see it a lot in Europe, Germany, France, Ireland. A lot of these European countries are having lots of migrants come in. So you see it's the other way. So you don't hear about like white people immigrating to Somalia or Africa in this way, and there's like pushback about it. It's definitely one-sided.
What did you think of ICE before, this administration, the change in policy? Did you believe what you believed about them now, or has this opened your eyes to them in any way? Or
so going back to like 2020, I covered anti-ICE protests, especially in Portland. Like they've been protesting that ICE building for years now, and I saw it. And I guess I wasn't really like aggressively anti-ICE because they were mostly like just administrative. It was an administrative position mostly. Yes, they would have to conduct warrants, and they'd go to the place wherever they had to go, and they'd be armed if they needed to be. But mostly it was like administrative work, and there's just such a stark difference now. I mean, there's thousands of them. They're untrained. They're getting paid tens of thousands of dollars in signing bonuses. They're literally just patrolling our streets, going door to door, grabbing people. I mean, you'll likely see it if we're out here long enough. You guys will likely see some of that, where ICE will just pull up on literally a brown person outside, and they like check, and if they don't have their ID on them, they're detaining them. Because that's their policy, is detain first and then figure out if they're legal after.
Is there anyone that supports it? Do they have any local? Are there any local people that support them?
The police?
Not the police, the ICE.
Oh, I mean, if they do, they're being very quiet about it right now. I mean, it was pretty loud at first, and people were like, I voted for this, like when it first started in December. And now I think it's just so politically and also publicly bad, and ICE is just not, like, it's just so egregious how bad it's been, to where I don't think if they do support ICE, people are being very quiet right now.
Do you think that's from a personal reflection angle, like these are people who are who have changed their mind, or do you think these are people who wouldn't want to face the public backlash and scrutiny, a combination of both?
I think it could be an introductory to like changing their thinking on things. Because I've had tons of conservatives even message me that, I'm conservative, but I don't support what's happening here, and like, that's tons.
Is that the conservative voice?
Yeah, that's it's my conservative voice. This is the George Floyd Square. Still exists.
Andrew Mercado, a U.S. veteran and video game streamer, first started live streaming protests after the killing of George Floyd and streamed much of the resulting protests, police response, and riots. He was also one of the first to broadcast the protests in opposition to the ICE raids that would eventually become known as Operation Metro Surge. As federal response intensified, Mercado streamed not only marches and protests, but ICE activity as well. Mercado filming ICE activity and his open critiques of the administration and federal law enforcement behavior has led himself to gaining more attention, including from supporters of the current admin and of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, one of which, named Jaden Scott, filmed his address at his front door, with a message intended to be threatening or at least scare him in retaliation for Mercado filming ICE at hotels that they stay at while working.
Andrew, your video, it was cute. However, the team who punishers, we got your address. We know who you are. Watch your fucking mouth. You hear me? Watch your fucking mouth. Commies, stand down. We've broken your signal groups. We've hacked your sites. You dumb fuckers vibe coded out of a site that should have been locked down. And Andrew, watch your fucking mouth, bitch boy. Wipe your paws off.
Misinformation comes with consequences.
Yeah, I mean, I reposted one of Jake Lang's little minions videos.
Who's Jake Lang, by the way?
Yeah, he's Jake Lang's a pardoned January 6th terrorist who raided the Capitol and then was pardoned by Trump personally.
I did not know that.
He was one of the 1,500 that was pardoned. And he took a bat. He was not like just a observer at the January 6th. He had a shield and he stole one of the Capitol Police's shield, and he had a baseball bat and was literally beating the Capitol Police with it to try to push into the Capitol. So like that's what he was doing. So he's a pardoned January 6th terrorist, and he's now doing this like humiliation ritual and going to multiple cities and doing Muslim hate and like trying to burn Qurans and slap it with bacon or like just be obnoxious, and then try to film people reacting to that, and then he becomes a crisis actor.
Right.
And then he starts getting grifting money for that. And it didn't work here because he got absolutely just kicked out of the whole city. Like, it was the craziest thing I've ever seen.
So how does this relate to what Patrick was talking about? Does this thing that you've referred to as stalking?
Yeah, so one of his little minions, Jaden Scott, I guess, figured out where I live. And then because I reposted his video saying that, hey, they're coming back, and I edited, I literally just uploaded his video. I called them the Temu Punishers, Call of Duty HVAC warfare veteran, I'm playful, it wasn't anything like I didn't even call them terrorists. I was like, and I was putting quotes too. And then I uploaded his video and had Sabrina Carpenter playing in the background because I thought that added a little flavor to the video because the video was ridiculous.
The Crusaders are going boots on ground tomorrow into the MAZ zone, Minneapolis Autonomous Zone, to restore law and order. And I promise, it will not go down like it went with American hero Jake Lang.
So I guess he didn't like that, and then he pulled up to where I live, and like right outside my door.
Maybe he's a big Swiftie.
And he recorded that and showed that online?
And he recorded it and put it out on the internet for all to see.
I offered an interview to Jaden Scott to explain his behavior and give his side, which he accepted before ignoring further attempts to set up an interview.
So up front, I had no idea who he was before Minneapolis, and I didn't have any idea who the other guy was who doxed him. So I stand firmly against doxing. And so with that, I would say, given the circumstances of Andrew's behavior leading up to all that, so I was taking pictures of like other media in general. They were taking pictures of me the whole time. So, I took a picture of him. I took a picture of a number of other guys. And honestly, the one I got I thought pretty cool. Maybe he could use for his profile picture, his background. It was him with the whole police line out front of Whipple there. I thought it was pretty cool. But, nothing personal, but it's we saw him go up to other right-wing media guys just like him and verbally harass them and trying to get them out of their cars to fight and saying, he would get the whole state on him. And, then he was live streaming and doxing FBI agents and documents that one night. So, and then he's also going around trailing ICE convoys and doxing their locations in real time. So he was doing some of his own questionable things too, but really, based off of his actions, I said, hey man, you might want to cool off or stand down here. These other crazy guys are doxing you.
When you said that you were giving him advice as to stand off or back down, these guys are doxing him, along with that picture of you behind him at one of these events, what type of message exactly did you expect to be received? That he should stop doing this because people might keep showing his house? What message was the intention?
I mean, the message was as it was. Hey, you're out in the open just like me. I mean, I'm out in the open. They take pictures of me. It's the same exact thing though, Dylan. It's if I continue to show up and people take pictures of me and put me on Antifa posters all over Blue Sky, I would be worried for my own well-being and safety.
When you said about doxing FBI agents, does this have to do with documents that were within a car that were seen, or what exactly occurred here?
Yeah, so to clarify, I don't think that Andrew doxed physical addresses of FBI agents. It seemed he was kind of, in the right place at the right time. Being on the left that he is, he probably got tipped off to X, Y, and Z to be in the right location. But these were sensitive documents, so it's not the same as it's doxing in the sense that you're revealing sensitive information from federal agents on a live stream. With, I don't know, he seems to have a good audience, so those people were then taking screenshots of that. So, he's probably not responsible directly for anything that would happen of that, but kind of is, based off of who saw it and what they choose to do next.
700 ICE agents are actually leaving. We got a drawdown coming from Homan. So I think someone in chat said that earlier. I must have missed it.
What is that? If they're taking out 700 ICE agents, what would that leave in
You still
the
got
area?
you still got you still got a few thousand. I mean, they're still here. They're just probably going to change the scope and scale of the operation. It's not going to change. Like it's still going to be what we're seeing. It's just, I think it might be a little harder to see. One of my 2,000 are going to stay. So they'll still I don't know, what's the size of the Minneapolis Police Department? It's still more than Minneapolis Police, I think. It's not ending, but it's slowly going to start fizzling out and go to the next city. Because that's what we, last year we went to Broadview in Chicago. It was in Portland, Oregon, and then I didn't make it to LA, but it was in LA as well. And it's just kind of like this traveling circus, if you will, and it goes to the next city. They're going to Springfield, Ohio next, I believe. So that's why after Bavino left, I'm like, okay, I don't see how this can escalate anymore when they already had 4,000 agents here and Bavino doing whatever the hell he wants. I just didn't see how it could get any worse without flying FPV drones at people, I guess. I don't know. I just didn't see it go any further. So,
could you see ICE using drones?
Yeah, they have been for surveillance.
Yeah. I know this is a charged political question, but is this an occupied city?
You got it's felt like that. It certainly has the feeling of it. You can always leave. I think an actual occupied city, they'd be sealing off exits and they would have the military there, for real. But with the police force size and the federal agents compared to our local police, it's felt that way, especially when Bavino was here. That shit sucked.
What did you think of Bavino's rhetoric? There was some body cam footage that came out when he was personally participating in the tear gassing of protesters and trying to clear the area of people. Did you see that footage?
Yeah, and I was also on the other end of it sometimes because I saw him. Yeah, he really was all about it. He would wear the Hugo Boss looking green Border Patrol trench coat out there. He really was he really owned that role that he was given and really was playing into the LARPing of being a Nazi, I think, and many people saw the same thing.
Do you think that's unfair to use that terminology towards him?
No, I think that's accurate because he specifically was portraying himself that way, and also was definitely feeding into that.
When you say there should be arrests, who were you viewing in that lens?
Yeah, Kristi Noem. I want ICE, specific ICE agents for sure, Jonathan Ross, the two involved in Alex Pretti's murder. Managers of ICE that are, Tom Homan, because he took a $50,000 bribe, and he's also kind of this underboss of ICE right now.
Oh my God, Mercado Central. Oh my God. It must be different that this is your backyard, right?
Yeah.
How is it different?
Well, it's where I live, it's my home, but it's because I covered the 2020 BLM protests after George Floyd was murdered, this isn't I'm now used to national, worldwide attention on the Twin Cities, so it's kind of a weird dichotomy there.
Do you think you being from here has allowed you to do a better job than if you were to say go to Baltimore tomorrow or somewhere else?
Yeah, because I know the area. I'm better connected to other like local journalists and activist groups. I'm able to figure out where things are faster. Whereas, you know, when we travel to other cities, it's like extra layers. Like we got to study maps. We got to look at the whole layout. We got to figure out best places to stay. That's going to be close to the ice facility or whatever, you know. It's like a lot more. Whereas here, like I just go home at the end of the night.
Do you think all of the people coming from out of state to live stream 5 of the same exact camera angle is helpful? When I go to these protests and I see 5 people getting the same camera angle, and they're not doing different projects, they're all live streaming just to different sources. Is this helpful, or are they just vultures?
It depends on the individual person. Like I'm not gonna make a blanket say because there's some really great like out of state people here, but
I don't know any good out of state people here.
Yeah, I know they're all especially this Dylan Burns. That's you guys hear about that guy?
Don't even bring him up. Don't say his name in this car.
But yeah, so it depends. Some of them can be vulture-y, especially if they're not trying to actually like, you know, like listen to the community or like they're doing their own thing. For example, like, you know, there's like a constant dispatch call going, and if like journalists are in there and like just broadcasting it or like etc. Like I run into issues doing that back in December, and like they're like, hey, don't do that, and I'm like, okay, I won't, and like that's it, that was it. But like you have some journalists that'll be like, nah, fuck you, I'm a journalist, I'll do that anyways.
Is there any behaviors that you've seen that you particularly don't approve of, or you think is distasteful or not helpful?
Well, I mean, yeah, like, okay, because, like, we're in such a media landscape now to where you have right-wing media, and then you have, like, the rest of us, and then you have some people that can be vulture-y, that are, like, the rest of us like that, but then you have, like, literal right-wing media agitators coming here, and then trying to incite a situation, and then, you know, tag the president on X, and then call for the Insurrection Act. And so you have a lot of people in the community on edge about that, and like they're not really trustworthy of out-of-state media if they don't know them right away because of the right-wing apparatus and like their agitation propaganda that they conduct. But yeah, like mostly like, I mean, if they're well-known, like Status Coup News or like, you know, I mean, AP Reuters gets they're fine. I'm not out here to try to get protesters arrested, right? Oh shit. Thanks, buddy. Hey, grab that. Thank you so much. Thanks, buddy. Take care. Yep. That happens a lot.
That's wild.
You just got $20.
Just got $20.
Why did you just get $20? While filming ICE activity, 2 ICE vehicles were discovered illegally parked outside of government buildings in downtown Minneapolis. If I filmed them for long enough, they would usually wave at me through the windows. After being told that they were parked illegally while waiting outside the courthouse, and after some backtalk asking the city's meter maid if it was, quote, worth the trouble, they eventually slinked away. The popular view here of ICE agents as masked men who see themselves above the law is very deeply held. Many locals wonder if they would ever be given similar leniency when it comes to enforcing local laws. Would you be ticketed in their shoes? Would you be investigated if you shot an officer the same way Renee Good or Alex Pretti was shot? The Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department that would typically launch investigations into any use of force against U.S. citizens only launched an investigation into the shooting of Alex Pretti after initially rejecting a civil rights probe. Acting ICE Director Todd Blanche emphasized that the FBI would be leading the investigation, saying that civil rights lawyers would be, and I quote, involved. No DOJ investigation was launched into Renee Good's killing. This was a leaderless protest. While there are protests organized through activist groups, as was the case at a protest outside Governor Tim Walz's mansion the same night, this larger protest was much more spontaneous. It doesn't take any accreditation to go into Photoshop and put together a flyer calling for neighbors to come together. It just takes 10 minutes of editing. And by not using hyper-ideological or academic terminology, with no one to engage in stringent purity testing of those who march, and a lack of violence, it created a big tent where anyone could show their opposition to ICE. Even the cars that the march passed had the opportunity to honk their horns in support. The most common signs were those mocking the administration, calling for ICE's removal, or making reference to upholding the US Constitution. The most common flag there was American, right side up or otherwise. There were students, workers, and the retired, age extended from the old to the very young, which led to a few nervous faces from parents after the "fuck ICE" chant started. There was even the flag from One Piece, which has become a symbol worldwide of youth-led protest movements, like the one which shook the nation of Nepal to its core, leading to the Prime Minister's resignation while leaving its parliament burnt over the issue of corruption and an attempted ban of social media. Most of the marchers saw the march through, with a small group continuing to protest, socialize, and dance near the Viking Stadium afterwards. With no leadership, there was no one to wrap up the event. The music was only played because someone brought a speaker. The man who did wrap it up, a local activist present at events like this in the city, directed those left towards other protests later on in the night. One activist quickly became many in times of immense pressure. One place local activists and residents showed their frustration with ICE was at the Whipple building, next to Fort Snelling, where ICE bases its operations. While driving up to the protest outside the ICE facility, we circled around in a manner that many of those protesting couldn't see if we had driven out of the ICE parking lot or not, leading to some identifying us as ICE agents, giving us a first-person view of what those federal officers see as they leave the building.
I think they thought we were ICE.
Yeah, that's how it works. Want to suck my dick while you're at it?
Sure.
Come on.
I'm sorry, I'm such an asshole. I'm sorry.
Fucking pussy! Uncle Tom! Fuck you! Stop us! I hope you ain't going to work. Driving a fucking expedition, you dipshit. Watch him turn to the right, motherfucker.
Do they do that a lot?
Yes.
Like peace sign and then go in?
Yes, they'll have Lyft and Uber in their cars. They'll have orange vests up on the dashboard like they're construction workers. They are all civilian clothes with no mask. Oh yeah, they do all kinds of shit. It's like that there. Fuck you.
Did you ever do something like this before all this attention came to Minneapolis?
I'm a union man. So I organize unions, and yes, I've been in the thick of getting, shit with cops and whatever, because they don't like when you organize unions, because you get power. Now we got power, they don't like it. But no, I'm not a protester to say. I'm retired from the Navy and retired from the post office. I'm a civil servant my whole life. No.
Check this contractor, the shredded company.
Yeah. I do this because I believe in America. I serve. I don't do this just because I'm 64 years old, I'm crippled. I usually walk. Hey, Collar! Come here, you little bitch! No, 64 years old, I'd never dreamt being here. Yep. Never. But I'm here and I'm staying for the long haul, and I will die becoming a Nazi hunter. Because they're gonna all pay. They're gonna pay the price. They're going to trial. They're gonna pay. They're gonna fucking pay for what they've done to people.
Leadership and rank and file?
All of them. Every fucking one of them, including the politicians that didn't step up. They're out. They gotta go.
Both parties?
Yep. And I am a Democrat. And I am actually I've been Antifa since I was born, but I joined Antifa in 1981. Mm-hmm. That's when I went in to serve. And anybody that don't know, and all these fucking mega motherfuckers, fuck you. You don't know what Antifa is. It's the military, you stupid fucks. It's my uncles, my grandfathers, my great-grandfather, my brother, my dad, my cousins that served, putting down fascism. Fuck you. Going to work. Nah, that's why I'm out here. I'm pissed. They arrested me. They towed my truck. They put me in jail at Christmas time. Yeah, fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. But that didn't bother me. I'm still here. They ain't scaring me. They ain't getting rid of me.
One time.
Fucking cowards! Cowards, you fucking pussies!
You said you served, correct?
Yeah.
What do you think of the veterans that have joined up with ICE?
I think they're fucking idiots. I think that they are undereducated. I think that they have no clue of what the Constitution truly is, because one, you gotta know how to read it, and if you don't know how to read it, why would you read it? And two, if you think you know it, why would you read it? You gotta actually open the book. You gotta open the document. You gotta see it. So yeah, you gotta open the documents. You gotta understand the law. That's like cops. In order to enforce the law, you have to know the law. And you don't. And when they don't, it's like, don't stand there and try to tell me what you think you know. I know what I know. I've been doing this for 40 years. I've been in the union. I know what cops used to be like. They were good. They were honorable. Yeah, you'd get beat by them if you were fucking up, but they never fucking shot you. They'd whip your ass or take you home to your parents and let your parents do that shit. These guys just open fire. Fuck that.
At what point did you decide to go in the street?
After they arrested me, they shot Renee Good. 3 days, I think, after I got out of jail, Renee was shot. When they shot Alex, who's a friend of mine, because I get all my care at the VA, that was it. That was it.
You knew him personally?
Yeah. I said then that I will die a Nazi hunter. When this is all said and done, I will hunt these fuckers down, and they will stand trial. They will stand trial. And it ain't just me, there's a lot of us. You coward! Hey, pussy, come here! Come here, you punk!
The protesters did their absolute best to let the federal officers know how they felt.
You fucking Nazi piece of shit!
Some would make simple chants. Others would speak into the microphone about said protesters' belief that those carrying out immigration and customs enforcement operations don't satisfy their wives, are a modern Gestapo, or have below-average sized genitalia.
Little tiny micro penis, look at it! Oh my gosh, so proud!
There were many chants about underperformance in the bedroom. When ICE officers did drive by, they either did their best to pass as fast as possible, ignore them, or sometimes wave, which was also common during raids and other operations. Every so often, one officer would slow down and take out their phone and film videos of what appeared to be the faces of local protesters and activists. Is it a sort of you film us, we film you dynamic? Or are names being added to a database, which reports have said, ICE has denied, but local protesters believe regardless? Trust has long since been shattered here.
Tell me when to turn it.
You can turn it. Could I ask you why you're out here today?
I just felt like probably the crowds are diminishing a little bit, and I wanted to be a placeholder for somebody who couldn't make it, who usually is here.
Do you come out here often?
No, I live about 60 miles away, so it's like, I just felt I need to say something. You know, I understand that ICE has a job to do, but they need to do it a little more humanely than they have been.
Do you do stuff like this often?
No, I do not.
So this is something that really got your attention and got you out of bed?
That's true, it did.
The noise for ICE agents in the Twin Cities does not stop when the sun goes down. Sleep is not a guarantee in a city where people don't want you to have it. Whistles screech, horns scream, brass trumpets sound off, pots and pans are banged about, and every noise that can pierce your eardrums and annoy you down to your bones echoes outside a Hilton hotel as the community went to sleep. But those making noise here don't see community members in this hotel. This noise demonstration was organized not only to show opposition to ICE, which local residents again joined in on by honking as they drove by, which occurred often, but to make sure that the agents got as little sleep as possible. They really did try their best to make as much noise for as long as law enforcement would allow, with some coming to support the noisemakers with snacks and hand warmers to keep them going longer into the cold Minnesota night. ICE and federal law enforcement mostly stayed inside, peeking their heads out their windows or waving on occasion in between taking out their phones to take videos of their own. The noisemakers, of many ages, shapes and sizes, and species, would curl around the building as the night went on, making noise on both sides of the Hilton, besieging it with whatever shrill howls they could manifest. Eventually, local Minneapolis police were called in. There were apparently reports that some activists were crossing a sign they shouldn't cross or were getting onto the roadway. So the police were sent in to preemptively block it off and quickly moved on the scene to interrogate the saxophone bear. Shortly after this, a noise disturbance was declared as the protest carried on as midnight got closer. Most dispersed, with just a select few noisemakers staying behind to try to make sure the agents didn't get comfortable too quickly. But not all noise demonstrations end this way. This is a youth-led demonstration outside a different hotel building servicing ICE agents in downtown Minneapolis. Lots of student activists and young people from the community are here to keep ICE awake, express their frustration through ear-piercing noise or expletives. This crowd was bigger and had more diverse instruments, at least enough for a few new local garage bands spanning genres encompassing rock to jazz to outlaw country. The crowd being younger, larger, and the event being advertised as high risk after 10 p.m. likely led local PD to expect a much busier night tonight. The yellow paintball-looking guns filled with crowd control pepper balls showed that. Another sign of this was the aggressive lighting meant to maintain visuals on the protest and also had the effect of obscuring protesters' vision of the hotel. The police response as the 10 p.m. deadline passed seemed to meet my expectations.
The police department has declared this an unlawful assembly under state laws of the state of Minnesota. Minnesota State Statute 609-715 prohibits remaining present at unlawful assembly. You are hereby ordered to immediately disperse, which means leave this area.
While still making noise and showing signs of youthful defiance, often flipping off the general direction of where the ICE agents are attempting to sleep. Soon the protesters had moved to the road, pots and pans still banging along near the hotel. The yelling, hooting, and hollering continued as more police moved into position. One thing I wondered about was how dispersal orders were handled. You would hear an announcement from the speakers saying you will be detained in 5 minutes, only for the time to pass, before hearing another announcement that you will be detained in 3 minutes.
You have 3 minutes to leave the area. Thank you for your cooperation.
Making it much harder to know exactly when you will be detained. Their LRAD, a loudspeaker so loud that it can also double as a means of crowd control weapon, informed the crowd of their legal predicament.
If you do not cease your unlawful behavior, disperse immediately from this area. You will be arrested.
The police were slowly kettling protesters, moving those who had moved down an adjacent road back to keep the demonstration contained as other officers moved around those who had not dispersed, before closing in.
They're separating all of us from where the people are being arrested across the way. Get to the sidewalk!
As those detained and unable to slip out made calls to loved ones or lawyers, those who weren't detained made their feelings clear in the art of foul vulgarities.
Novo! You're faggot. Faggot! Fuck 12! Fuck ICE! Fuck you! 12! We're pigs!
You on some bullshit, man. You a Carl Winslow, Uncle Tom looking motherfucker. Literally. Man.
Those present at this point are few in number in comparison to the crowd the night started with. This is not a representation of the crowd at the start, but you could feel the rage that kept them here being directed towards local law enforcement. While the local PD were not the subject of the protest, this is the community that lived George Floyd's murder firsthand and the following unrest.
All cops are bastards. A-C-A-B. All cops are bastards.
The overwhelming feeling I got from the expressions of local PD was that of weariness. They seemed tired. Tired of the Twin Cities being in the national spotlight, maybe, but that spotlight isn't gone yet. Showdowns and shouting matches with locals don't just occur during immigration raids. Anywhere masked agents show their face, they tend to be heckled by locals.
As soon as this is over, your names, your addresses are all going to be public. Guess what? People will find you. And again, who's going to protect you? Not a motherfucker. Not one fucking person's going to fucking protect your ass.
There can be a tendency for out-of-state activists to dominate protests the longer the national spotlight focuses anywhere. And local activists were present as well, coordinating information on community group chats and blowing whistles to alert people of ICE's presence in the community. But the majority of those confronting ICE out in the field are those stepping out on their front yards to yell at them. As was the case when an ICE vehicle got a flat tire, pulled off on the side of the road, and got flanked on all sides by a dozen armed agents, starting an over 30-minute standoff as locals verbally berate the officers, who met them with masked, expressionless faces and snarky replies.
And those of you of color, you'll be next, because they want a white world, and you're not white.
You know who some of the first people to wear masks like that were? The Russian secret police.
Yeah.
And now you're modeling the Russian secret police?
The tire acted as a jigsaw puzzle for the agent changing it, as it did take some time.
How many agents does it take to change a fucking tire? Yeah?
Actually, there's 5 over there. And then...
Oh, I think one is reading the instructions.
No.
Enough time that everybody on the block could look out their window or walk on their front porch, get a good look, and have a story to tell. And stories travel quite fast here. What do you think about local concerns from residents, for example, about ICE agents being messed up all the time, or their general behavior being not that of a dignified police officer, that they behave unprofessionally? What would you say about these concerns from locals?
I think the locals are instigating them. Absolutely. It's usually the left that starts the fight, and then when people defend themselves, then they cry wolf and then pretend to be the victim, even though they're the ones starting the fight. So, yeah, I think they're definitely dignified and professional, and they simply want to conduct operations unobstructed. And, you know, a lot of the times, Dylan, these people, they get detained or arrested for, you know, overnight, maybe. This is a sanctuary city. Even the protesters, so, like, they say, like, oh, they're taking us in the concentration camps as Nazis and Gestapo, but in reality, like, if they're cleared and, you know, cooperative and not violent, then a lot of the times, being that it's a sanctuary city, they get just like a slap on the wrist and let go. So I think it's definitely instigated by the left.
America, we have retrieved Jake Lang from his political prisonership at Ramsey County Jail. Tomorrow, Crusaders take on the streets and take the capital for the Battle of Minneapolis. We will not surrender. We will not back down. Crusaders, we march at noon. Commies, come find out. See you guys there.
We are back at the Whipple building, and the mood is vibrant and turbulent. A demonstration by Native American activists just wrapped up. and now counter-demonstrators are waiting for Jake Lang, a J6er who spent January 6, 2021, swinging a bat at Capitol police officers as pro-Trump activists attempted to push the government to change the 2020 election results. For Jake, all this resulted in was 4 years in jail, before being included in the blanket J6 pardon issued by President Trump. What makes him unique among J6ers is that he was never formally sentenced, and the time he spent behind bars, often in 24/7 solitary confinement, was entirely in the J6 ward of the DC Central Detention Facility, which he called the Gulag. Jake first came to Minneapolis along with his supporters, which he calls Crusaders, on January 17th, only 10 days after the killing of Renee Good. He called it March Against Minnesota Fraud. This was after MAGA influencer Nick Shirley recorded a video that he purported to expose previously documented cases of fraud in Minnesota by making new allegations of fraud against local Somali daycares without substantial new evidence. This video, and many of his still unsubstantiated claims against specific businesses, is believed to have brought the national spotlight onto the Twin Cities that eventually led to the operation known as Metro Surge. Mr. Lang intended to show his opposition to fraud by burning a Quran downtown. Tensions had risen following Renee Good's shooting, and another shooting just 3 days before, which ICE eventually would say officers lied about the circumstances of. This tense environment came crashing in on Jake Lang. After leaving to lick his wounds, he announced his return to the city for February 7th to stand for white culture and take back Minneapolis.
Anybody who stands for American values, Christian values, for white culture, white Western civilization, we need to take back and secure the area of Minneapolis from these absolute crazy leftist Antifa. They are disgracing one of America's greatest cities, and we need to take it back.
His first stand for white culture was made at the Minnesota State Capitol building.
Pro-life, baby! America first, America only!
That sculpture was put up by a U.S. veterans organization, which did not take kindly to his full-body kicks, meaning Lang had to spend the night in Ramsey County Jail. While journalists speculated if he would be let out in time for his press conference at the Whipple building, it seems the winds of the legal system favored him, and he was let out, with a court order to not come within a few hundred feet of the State House again, meaning his show could go on. Before I even got to the event, self-styled patriotic intellectuals who had come to the town to engage in a free marketplace of ideas made themselves known to me.
This guy's video recorded me because he's gay. Videotape me if you're gay. Videotape me if you're gay. I knew it. I knew you fuckers were gay. I'm wearing pink. You want to fuck me? Hey. How you doing?
Let's go, dickhead. I got places to go.
This man would continuously circle the event, sharing other timeless quotes out of his microphone, each time usually eliciting not much more but groans and a few vulgarities from the crowd. The chance of Jake Lang coming back to Minneapolis had turned out the largest crowd at the Whipple building since they put up the gates and barricades. The crowd was the full kaleidoscope that makes up Minnesota's fired up and activated opposition to ICE. People from the city, those who had driven out from the suburbs and countryside, the young, old, veterans and civilians, those who don't believe in any political violence, and those dressed up in black bloc, liberals, socialists, libertarians, and even some who describe themselves as conservatives near the start of the counter-protest. The only thing that connected every person there is a unified disdain for ICE's behavior and a desire to see Lang ejected from the state. Jake Lang's press conference came and went very quickly. So quick, most who had came missed it. A U-Haul carrying Lang and a few supporters, one holding a large wooden cross which seemed to hold back those who had stormed after the truck, and another holding a paintball gun aimed at those who got close to what he called a press conference, which occurred entirely with the backing track of Ice Ice Baby by Vanilla Ice.
We're back, baby! We're back! We will not be replaced by Somalians! Jesus is king! Jesus is king! American Crusaders assemble!
An SUV came up behind Lang, attempting to help to protect him from the crowd as those dressed in black bloc attire swarmed the U-Haul and struck the SUV. But as soon as he had arrived, he was already speeding off, gone into the distance after just 2 minutes. Lang and his supporters online would advertise this as a huge victory in taking Minnesota back, fawning over the layers of humor in carrying ice bags around. Yet those who came to the counter-protest had a very different interpretation. What those on the ground saw was a man who said he was going to do a press conference, who then drove by in his truck, never touched the ground, before speeding away after 2 minutes of yelling. Meaning the mood among protesters immediately after his exit was somewhat jubilant at having helped push him out of the city a second time.
Do not be intimidated! We will win! We will overcome! We the people hold the power!
In a way, both sides got what they were looking for. Lang got his performance to spread online to his supporters, and local protesters showed that they don't think that Minnesota nice applies to ice, or J6ers for that matter. After Lang left, many stayed to keep demonstrating, as the central node of ice activity in the state was right there. Most chanted, but a few people started to pass out rubber toys of the phallic variety. The phallus artillery was used to pelt passing ice vehicles and police cars, tossing them over the barricade like a colorful tool trebuchet. This was the only thing thrown by protesters outside of the odd snowball the entire protest. This is in part due to the fact that protesters kept jumping over the barriers dividing them from the street to reload their ammunition stockpiles.
Bring them back! Give them back! Give us our dicks back! Give us our dicks back! Yeah!
This went on until the cops defending the road grabbed enough of the rubber shells and lobbed them in the other direction. This tickled the crowd.
Hey, pig, you want a dick? I know you don't have one!
Some protesters and Antifa Black Bloc participants geared up for the worst, crossed over the barrier onto the road. What started as 1 or 2 people reloading their veiny ammunition became more and more staying on the road. As the crowd looked for an outlet to its anger, some found one in an old truck passing by with Nuremberg 2.0 written on the wooden board attached to the back of it. This man supported the protests against ICE, but those throwing the artillery hitting his truck and the crowd swarming did not know that.
Friendly fire! It's friendly fire! Friendly fire! Friendly fire!
One masked person walked up behind his truck and broke his tail light. Another victim of the confusion. More people spilling onto the road creates a confrontation with police, as one activist tried to block the road with their body. The police did their best to keep the crowd from obstructing traffic, pushing back those who risked blocking the road. This led to a showdown that usually amounted to staring matches and verbal altercations.
Where were you when Alex Pretti and Renee were shot and killed? Why weren't you protecting them? The most wanted murderer in Minnesota. You let him escape. You piece of shit. Do you fuck children too? Do you fuck children too? They drive up and down this road and you let them do it as they break traffic laws.
As the day went on, more and more people clear out and leave the event, going home and getting out of the cold. This correlated with tensions beginning to lower. While the odd phallus would still fly and vulgarities still thrown around, clashes and scuffles were becoming less likely as the confidence of the crowd in taking risks against the police diminished with its numbers. I remember hearing the press present discussing how things looked to be cooling off. Just at that moment, the new weapons came out. Tear gas canisters are loaded, and the cops begin to brace for something as the crowd is giving new life from the presence of crowd control weapons. Then we saw what the cops were bracing for. Someone from above gave an order. The cavalry had arrived. Whatever lowering of tensions had occurred is now gone.
Due to the unlawful conduct and threat to public safety, I hereby declare this to be an unlawful assembly.
Fuck you!
You are in violation of Minnesota Statute 609.705, unlawful assembly. I am now issuing a public safety order to disperse and order all those assembled along Federal Drive to immediately disperse and cease your unlawful behavior. This means you need to leave the area peaceably. If you do not do so, you may be arrested or subject to other police action.
If you have a mask, put it on. If you have earplugs, put it on.
pose no threat to you. Why do you think it's okay that people are behaving above the law, outside the bounds of the U.S. Constitution, violating Fourth Amendment rights? Why are you okay with that?
I'd probably
Why
be
do
the
you
one
serve them?
finding some shit online, digging into your
Why don't you speak out?
Just saying.
I don't know how you're not ashamed of what they're doing to people. I don't know how you're not ashamed.
What if they grabbed your neighbor? You feel me?
You are under arrest. Be seated where you are and follow the directions of officers.
The police made their move, grabbing whoever couldn't back away fast enough outside of officers' reach. The young activists who trip, and the old who can't move quick enough. After arresting and hauling off a fair bit of protesters from the Whipple building, the police established a new line at the parking lot. One protester found solace pulling the police tape down, eliciting a cheer from some of those who remained. Anything to lift the spirits of those left making a stand in a parking lot that can only end one way: mass arrest.
You are under arrest.
Achieved this time by officers suddenly lunging out at protesters, grabbing them. Some struggled. One loudly.
I can't fucking breathe. Let me pull my mask down. Shit! Damn! I have asthma. Can you calm the fuck down? I'm not even touching you. I'm doing nothing to you. I was rolling. I didn't know rolling around on the ground was illegal.
But most were detained in silence, even if bloodied. Those arrested had their hands restrained with zip ties and were led away to jail, where they would spend the weekend for their disobedience in a parking lot.
Tomorrow, Crusaders take on the streets and take the capital for the Battle of Minneapolis. We will not surrender. We will not back down. Crusaders, we march at noon. Commies, come find out. See you guys there.
What did you think about his statement, about taking the state, that they were going to take the state today? Do you think they did it?
I don't think they were successful in taking the state. I don't think driving by a crowd in a U-Haul and then not even coming back or parking to get out and do anything. I don't know. When they put those fences up there, it made it a lot harder for people to want to go up there and gather and protest because it's like so militarized. And if anything, it ignited more people to go out and protest ICE so I don't want to give them credit for that, but at the same time, that was the most amount of people I've seen at the Whipple building in weeks, and actually just since last week.
In retrospect, I thought it was definitely a battle. It had some good wins for the right and some good wins for the left. It was definitely a what do you call that? A good. I don't know if microcosm's the right word, but it's a good a look into future city searches or whatever they call them, operations in sanctuary cities moving forward. So it's a good study for both. Yeah.
Looking back, would you say that Operation Metro Surge was a success for the administration?
I think so. I mean, technical, yeah. I would say it was a success. And now we're seeing other operations, across the country. But there's obviously some liberal pushback and, crazy narrative because they're trying to paint Trump as the actual Nazi, the Gestapo, whatnot. And it's all geared and ramped up towards the midterms 2026.
Do you think that this operation was a model to follow in other cities for the administration?
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Operation Metro Surge was announced to have ended on February 12, 2026 at a press conference led by Tom Homan, who Trump made his quote-unquote border czar for his second term.
In success that has been made arresting public safety threats and other priorities since this surge operation began, as well as the unprecedented levels of coordination we have obtained from state officials and local law enforcement. I have proposed, and President Trump has concurred, that this surge operation conclude. For those that say we are backing down from immigration enforcement or the promise of mass deportations, you are simply wrong. Look at the data. Record number of arrests and deportations under President Trump's first year. And we'll continue that effort. Prioritizing public safety threats and national security threats doesn't mean we'll forget about everybody else. We will take action on everybody else. That's just a stone cold fact.
He was given command over the operation after one too many public missteps by Bovino, And as public backlash grew far outside of the Twin Cities, the administration asked itself, was this still worth the ire and potential of another officer-involved shooting? Roughly 2% of the city's population is undocumented. Compared to states like Texas or Florida, where the majority of the nation's undocumented live, was the lack of cooperation from state and city officials worth this growing attention?
She's fired. This is huge news as we are getting this, that Trump is replacing Kristi Noem.
The president, as he likes to do, just made the announcement himself via Truth Social.
There was reports of frustration inside the White House.
Replacing Kristi was based on the culmination of her many unfortunate leadership mishaps, including the fallout in Minnesota, the $200 million ad campaign, the allegations of infidelity, the mismanagement of her staff, and her constant feuding with the heads of other agencies, including CBP and ICE. Kristi's drama sadly overshadowed and distracted from the administration's extremely popular immigration agenda, which will continue full force.
NBC News has just learned that Gregory Bovino, he's the head of the Border Patrol. He oversaw the immigration crackdown in Minneapolis and many other cities. He is retiring. What more have you learned?
Yeah, and his date for when that retirement is going to comes on the same day, coincidentally, as the last day that we expect outgoing DHS Secretary Kristi Noem to serve in that post.
It seems after conversations with Governor Tim Walz, Homan and Trump may have seen enough. But while federal officers are supposed to be leaving, there is no guarantee that the surge will not return, or that the operation still won't exceed levels before the surge started, keeping activists on edge. On February 12th, at 1:15 p.m. local time, ICE officers pretended to have car trouble. This was in order to lure Jesus Flores, an undocumented man, away from his home by taking advantage of his willingness to help others to catch him while his guard was down. They grabbed him before he could run back inside to his family. ICE has never stopped operating in the city, and that isn't changing. There's still no DOJ Civil Rights Division investigation into Renee Good's death. In a separate ICE-involved shooting, 2 people were shot in the leg. Officers on the scene claimed those shot were attacking them with shovels and broom handles at the time of the shooting. ICE now claims these 2 officers lied under oath about the shooting. These cases, combined with the initial statements made after the Alex Pretti shooting, meant that every shooting involving federal immigration officers since Operation Metro Surge started in the Twin Cities has either been lied about by the officers at the scene or top administration officials. Trust cannot be rebuilt with federal immigration officers for the rest of the Trump era, however long it may last. After this administration, trust building with whatever body enforces immigration law will require them to respect the neighborhoods they police, local laws, people's desire for transparency, the constitutional rights of those they are supposed to protect, and have a commitment to not repeat the mistakes of Operation Metro Surge. Thank you for watching this independently made documentary. We have a bunch of other videos interviewing those affected by the war on the ground in Ukraine that you can check out on my channel. If you want to help fund more of my work so I can do more documentaries like this in the future, please support me on Dylan Burns TV on Patreon or my second YouTube page called Dylan Burns Live, where you can see my videos and live streams, which you can view on my Twitch or my website, dylanburns.tv, every weekday from 6 p.m. EST to midnight. If you want my hot takes or photos from my time in Ukraine, check out my socials, including Dylan Burns 1776 on Twitter, Dylan Burns TV on Blue Sky, or Dylan Burns TV on Instagram. All links, including the community Discord, are in the description. See you guys next time. Good night and good luck.